Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Neil Kaplan.
Neil Kaplan, my minion. My faithful minion. Thank you, Neil. I shall watch your show at some point. The reruns. Hello. Hi, we are spread out, aren't we? If you guys feel comfortable, everybody should move down a bit, but if you're happy where you are, then be there. I give you a choice. Hi, David.
Hello.
David was really happy because I gave him a massage the other day. It seems that he hasn't been touched since 1973. So he was really, really thrilled about this. Hi.
Hi. How was your weekend?
Just wonderful. You know, I'm having the best time of my life. You guys, we do a lot of conventions, BotCon included, which is our big one, and you guys are just the best. The nicest, sweetest, finest fans. UK Transformers fans rule! You guys are great.
Right, okay, so obviously Friday night we had the readings from Bumblebee And Me.
Yes, we did.
But this time we are going to get nerdy. We're going to get deep into Bumblebee and questions of everything. So I'm going to start with...
Did you say questions of ethics?
Everything.
Oh, everything. I know we were going to discuss
everything
ethics.
does come
In which case I'm leaving. Because... All right, go ahead.
So, let's start with a very, very difficult one for you. In your own words, how would you define, who would you say is Dan Gilvezan? That's very ethical.
Well, a strange question. Wait, you mean, like, what would my epitaph be?
If that's the way you want to interpret it.
Wouldn't that be, I mean, wouldn't your epitaph sort of sum up the entire thing of your life? I'd like my epitaph to be, he made me laugh. Yeah, I mean, you know, life can sometimes be hard and difficult. There's a lot of ups and downs in life. And I think if you can make someone laugh or make them forget their problems for a little while, or maybe even a half an hour during a television series, you've done a good thing. It's something I'm proud to have been a part of. And yeah, I think that would be it. I would be happy to be known as someone who made other people smile.
So, in the book,
would you all smile at me once? Just for, give me a nice big smile. Oh, that's nice. Thank you. I'd love to see that. Thank you.
So in the book, Bumblebee and Me, you mentioned how you got the role of Bumblebee. But prior to that, how did you become an actor?
How did I become an actor? I started actually as a kid. When I was a kid, I don't know how many of you have aspirations toward performing, or how many people in your family may have. When I was a little kid, I gave puppet shows in the backyard. I did little skits and stuff. I was just constantly on. I went to a fine arts college where I studied acting. I did a lot of stage work. And the voiceover thing started, weirdly enough. I had an on-camera agent for commercials. This was many years ago. And I would come into his office, and there was a person in the side office that I always looked at. He had a big, bushy, black beard, and he had a big stomach. And I always wondered who he was, so I finally one day went in and said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Steve Fisherman." And I said, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm a voiceover agent." I said, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "Well, you know, on radio or on television, if you don't see the person, that's voiceover. Or in a cartoon, that's voiceover." I said, "I can do that." He said, "Yeah, you can. The door is right over there. You can go ahead and use it." I said, "No, really, I think I can be good at it." He said, "Fine, make a tape and bring it to me." Now, in those days, we were working reel-to-reel tapes. This is even before cassettes came along. Forget about DVDs. So I made a tape, a reel-to-reel tape, of myself reading Walden Pond, which is a weird choice for an audition piece of material, because if you've ever read Walden, the sentences are like a page long. It's just strange. He took me for whatever reason in the world and started sending me off for auditions. One of the very first ones was for Spiderman and His Amazing Friends. Everybody in town was up for this show. And, relax. Just relax. Breathe into it. That's okay. So everybody in town was up for this show, and I was lucky enough to read for the part of Spider-Man. They had me come back again, and then a third time. And at the very last audition, it was Frank Welker, Kathy Garver, and myself. And the producer came out and said, Congratulations, you're our team. And I was floored because I'd never done it before. I'd never done animation. I'd acted a lot, but I'd never done animation before, which is a different thing. And that's how it started. I mean, really out of the blue. And that just sort of splashed me right out into the voiceover community. Everybody was, who's this guy? And that portion of my career started there. Did you enjoy that little route that I gave you?
I certainly did, yes. Yeah.
He looks at me funny sometimes. Did you notice that? As if he has a certain amount of lust in his eyes.
You might very well say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
I wish you wouldn't. By the way, we'll be going on the road, David and I, after the show. We're appearing in Leeds next week. We'll be in Brighton the week after, so do come and see us.
We're going to Brighton?
Yes.
The deal's off.
Oh.
Gentlemen at the back, can we get ourselves a runner with a microphone set up in a little while, please, while we can take some questions from the audience. But before we do that,
hey, wait, everybody, look, there's my wife, right here.
Everybody,
say hi to Giselle. Oh, I love that girl. She's excellent. I bet you all find someone as wonderful as her. And
that deserves an aw.
I love it. She's incredibly embarrassed at this moment too, so that was a lot of fun.
So that's how you got into voice acting. You started out with Spiderman and his amazing friends. But you've done, well, actually, let's stick with the voice acting. Where would you say your inspirations came from? Maybe actually not just with voice acting, but in terms of acting in general.
Well, acting in general, I really, really admired Dustin Hoffman. When I was in high school, he did The Graduate. Which, how many here have you seen The Graduate, the movie? No? You must stream this or rent it. It's a classic film. Dustin Hoffman plays a nerdy little college graduate who doesn't quite know where his life is going, and he's all like a little nerdy like this. The next role he took was Ratso Rizzo in Midnight Cowboy. Has anyone seen that movie? Midnight Cowboy is a brilliant, by a British director, as a matter of fact. He plays a street character who's dirty and, dirty hair and bearded, and it was such a departure that I thought this guy's an incredible actor. So I was really enamored of him. As far as voiceover, you're going to hear the same people from all the voice people. Dawes Butler, Mel Blanc, of course. And Frank Welker, who I began working with at the very beginning. Frank is just the finest that there is, and he's still working today. So those people were big influences on me. Go ahead and sit down now.
Fantastic. If anybody's got any questions that they want to, okay, we'll start. There's a couple down here.
Thank you. My question is, having given the very first voice for an established character in all Transformers, how do you feel that he's somewhat become the poster boy, the silent Bob for Transformers?
Let me answer this way. How many were at the script reading last night? We had a great laugh when someone said, Bumblebees can speak. And Bumblebee answers, yeah, what do you think this is, a Michael Bay movie? You know what, let me mention this. The book that I wrote, Bumblebee and Me, there's a chapter that discusses that very thing. And my feeling is, I established this character, I feel very protective of it, but in a way you have to let that go, because each producer, each production is going to have a different take on it. So I feel proud of the work that I did to begin the character, and I'll always have that. I don't care much for the choice of not having him talk. He will speak in the final episode of Prime, I understand. And I don't know what plans they have for Beast. What is it, Beast Battle? Beast Hunters, yeah. I don't know what they're doing with Beast Hunters. I guess he will speak. But I have a great deal of pride in having established that character. And I've heard lovely things from a lot of you regarding what that character meant to you, and it means a lot to me. Thank you. Yes. I got it.
Were you happy, or have you ever got, or have you been tempted to get a car like Bumblebee?
I have, as a matter of fact, but I don't know how I fit into a tiny little Volkswagen. I'm kind of tall. So somebody asked me what kind of car, you know, Volkswagen won't let them use the Volkswagen anymore because they don't want to be associated with quote-unquote war movies. Now, apparently that whole World War II thing that they went through, they'd forgotten about. Also, the 94 episodes of war series that they forgot about during the 80s, but they decided they didn't want to be behind any war movies. I always thought he might be a Mini Cooper. I thought that might be a choice for the new Bumblebee. I think making him a sleek, you know, cool Corvette, that's not, what? Whatever it was. But it was sleek and it was good. That's not Bumblebee's not sleek. Bumblebee's cute and small, so, but that's only my opinion. I love you. You want to?
Yeah, got a question just over here? Yeah.
What does that mean, that paddle? What does that two mean?
It's the number of the microphone. So
Oh, I thought it was the number of little spankings we were going to give you after the interview.
can we get panel 4, please?
Aha! I think we found our man. Yes.
What was it like returning to the role of Spiderman after so long when they asked you to work on Shattered Dimensions?
For $20.99?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really weird. Because as you know, I did Spider-Man in the early 80s. 30 years later, my agent called me and said, they want you to do Spider-Man again. I said, what? And they said, yeah, there's a video game called Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. And there's going to be 4 Spider-Men. And they're going to use voices, people who have voiced it in the past. And they want you to do Spider-Man 2099, Spider-Man of the future. So I was thrilled because I thought after 30 years I finally had a grasp on this character, you know? And it was fun to do. Not as much fun as the early days, because I don't know whether you're aware of it, but when you do a video game, it's just you. In the old days, when we were doing Transformers, it was Frank and Peter, Chris Latta, and Michael Bell, and we were all in the same room together. It was a giant party. And it was a lot of fun. It was more like old-time radio when everybody was there performing the piece. In video, it's just you. And you're going through page after page of lines like, watch out! I wouldn't go there. Uh-oh. Ah! That's a bad choice. I mean, just one line after another after another. So it's really much more work and less satisfying. But it was so much fun to revisit the character that, yes, I enjoyed it a great deal and I'd love to do it again. I'd do it any time. Did you play the game? Yeah? Did you finish it? All right, I finished it. I did. I finished it. They gave me a cheat book when they sent me the game, so I got through it. It was good. Anyone else? Yes.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi.
Really good.
I'm great. Thank you.
Can I get a massage?
I'm sorry?
Can I get a massage?
Can you get a massage? Let me put it. I'll tell you what. Buy a book. I'll massage you.
I'll buy one.
All right. I just wanted, before we go any further, I need to plug this book because my wife's making me do it. This is the book that I wrote called Bumblebee And Me. Many of you have it and have read it. How many of you have it? How many of you have read it? How many of you have enjoyed it? No, yell real loud if you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a fun read, guys. We have a few left. We brought a few over with us and we have very few left. I'll be happy to autograph these for you. This contains all of the inside stories, pictures, memories that I had of the show. And I'm sorry, look, she's running to buy it right now. Smart idea, because they're going fast. They're going like hotcakes. In fact, people are putting syrup and butter on them. I don't know why. Anyway, this is the book, and I will give you a massage if you buy the book. That offer cannot go out to everyone because my wife will not allow me. So, you. Yes.
I think, do we have a question over here?
Yes.
Hi. When you go about creating the voice of a character, obviously you kind of go off and reveal the same character's version. Are you ever mindful of something that the voice actors do for you? So if you become the voice and you decide it sounds too close to what somebody else has done, do you ever switch from what you're going to do, or do you just follow yours?
Absolutely. In fact, there's a chapter in the book called Creating the Voice. and where I talk about how we do it. And in the case of Bumblebee, Wally Burr, who was our director, worked very closely with me in developing the voice. Good girl. Your husband gets a massage. And I'm going to kiss you on the lips. Why not? Anyway, Wally worked very closely with me on the voice. He would say something like, things like, make him a little younger. So, you know, the pitch would come up just a little bit like that. And then he'd say, no, make him just a hair older. Maybe he's maybe 22. All right, 22, right in here, something like this. Yes. He said he's a little street smart. So start to drop the, oh, you mean like going and having and being? Yeah, that's more like it. Let's try a line like that. Hey, Optimus, are we going now? Yeah, that sounds pretty good, Dan. Add a little more G at the end of that, so it's not quite so slangy. Hey, Optimus, are we going right now? Yeah, that sounds good. Let's record that. So it's very much working with the director at that stage to figure out how you do the voice. Then as you're performing it, as the series goes on, and you'll notice this, if you listen to Homer Simpson from the first season or the second season of the Transformers, totally different from what Dan Castellaneta does now. Because he's developed that character over time. That character experiences things, and the actor puts that into his mental memory, and it fleshes the character out, and that character grows as time goes on. But at the very beginning, it's very important to listen to the director and where he leads you. Yes? How long are we going?
What time is it?
It's 1 o'clock.
It's 1 o'clock. We've got plenty of time. Don't worry.
Okay, sure.
If you want to sit down, if your leg's tired, that's okay.
Should I sit down?
No.
No? Let's have a go. Who wants Dan to sit down and shut up? Oh, not shut. Okay, who wants Dan to sit down? We have a few. Who wants Dan to remain standing? I'm afraid to stand exactly.
Well, I think we have a question just from you.
Okay.
Yeah, so, hi Dan.
Hi.
It's a bit of a random question that I'm going to ask you anyway. Out of the hit appearance from G1, who was your preferred look either out of Bumblebee and Goldbug? What was your preferred visual look? I know it's a bit strange.
It was, wow, I almost don't remember. I do remember my reaction to the fact that they were going to make Goldbug out of Bumblebee. And the reaction was, what? Why? And the answer came, more toys. Yeah. I honestly don't remember the first moment, but I'll tell you what, I wasn't happy about it. I mean, I'd spent, 3.5 seasons developing this character, and suddenly they decide to dip him in gold. And as I say in the book, again, what was next? Dip him in Hershey syrup and call him Chocobot? I mean, it didn't make a lot of sense to me, but once again, you had to realize that this was a show based on a toy line. And the toys came first. Now, the stories were good, the characters were good, the acting was great, but the toys came first. Hasbro was and is calling the shots. So that's just the way it is in this business. And it's something as an actor that you have to be prepared for. You don't have that much control over what happens in your career. You're at the mercy of producers, directors, editors. You can do a fine performance, and the parts that you like best are lying on the cutting room floor. So it's just something you have to go with. But no, I was not happy, and I'm glad that was sort of a passing phase, I guess, because he's still yellow now. He's different types of cars, but at least he's still yellow.
Yeah, just a question over here.
Chris Latter's known as a bit of a personality.
Where are you?
Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Chris Latter was known as a bit of a personality.
Yeah.
How was it working with him?
How was it working with him? Chris was one of the most talented people I have ever worked with. Also one of the sweetest people I've ever worked with. If you talk to other voice actors that worked with him on the show, you'll hear some of the same sorts of things. Chris was massively talented, but he had a lot of demons inside him. He was also a user of various chemical substances. And I think that was part of the reason that he died early. And I say that not to disparage Chris, because I have nothing but love and adoration for Chris and admiration for his talent, but those drugs took him down, I think. That's my opinion. He died of a heart attack. He was a wonderfully talented man. And weirdly enough, someone asked me at the last panel what is your memory of Chris? And I had this one memory of him. We had finished recording a session, and I was standing in the lobby, and he was suiting up. He drove a motorcycle. Okay, so that gives you some idea where he's at. That boy was into speed, and that boy was on full throttle all the time. And I remember looking over at him, and he was all dressed in black. He had black motorcycle boots, black pants, black leather jacket, and a black helmet. And he looked like one of those guys, you know, you see in the movies, you know, you walk into that biker bar and they all look at you like they're going to tear your head off. He looked like that, except I knew that inside, he was the sweetest man I ever knew. He had a beautiful soul. And that facade, that outside, it was nothing more than a Starscream facade, because that was not him. He was a wonderful person, and we lost him for sure. Anybody else? Wow, did I bring everybody down? I'm sorry. When I talk about Chris, I just start to feel that way, because he was a really, really sweet person. And we have lost a lot of cast members. Scatman's no longer with us, who was also wonderful. Ken Sampson, who played Hound, passed away not too long ago. It's not going to be long for me, probably, because I'm feeling a little faint right now, as a matter of fact. Well, you got to be standing up. No, I should be around for a good long while. Okay. Anybody else?
Oh, we're back over here, I think.
I was just wondering, what was your favourite Bumblebee storyline?
The favorite storyline? My favorite episode was one of the early ones called Transport to Oblivion. And yeah, the reason for that is Spike and Bumblebee really kind of bonded during that one. And we had a lot, Corey and I had a lot to do together. That's an interesting story, also in the book. They had me back for a callback for the show, and they wanted me to read, they knew they wanted me to do Bumblebee, but they also thought they wanted me to do Spike as well. But they decided with so much dialogue between the two characters, it would be better to hire someone else. So the wonderfully talented Corey Burton got the role, and we had a great time doing it, Corey and I. But that's probably my favorite episode, just because there was so much between the two of us.
I know it's an impossible question, because even in the book you say that when you read from the part of Spike, because you just received the news that you were already put on the cast member of the show, the next 20 minutes were a blur. But let's just say we showed you the Spike image, which we don't have, but if you saw it now, how would you put a vocal performance to
Well, see, the problem is, I'm 30 years older now, so my voice is a little older, but it would be up in here, and it would be, you know, very much what Corey was doing, except it would sound a lot like Bumblebee, so I think that was another problem. But, you know, hey, Bumblebee, let's go over that rise and see what's over there. You know, it would be more in that range, but I think they decided it would just sound too much like Bumblebee, so Corey got it. Corey, you know, have any of you met Corey? Corey's very hard to get to see. I'm going to try and lure him to one of these things. I'm going to try and sell a Bumblebee and Spike panel to one of these conventions and try and get Corey out here, because he's a lot of fun. And yeah, that would be great to have him.
Would anybody like to say that?
Yeah, I would too. Yes. Do it. Yes, ma'am.
All the new Bumblebee incarnations, like Michael Bay films and Prime and all that, which one's your favourite?
You know, I like the one that Bumper Robinson was doing in Transformers Animated. Just because, yeah, all right, Transformers Animated! Yay! Yeah, that was a good show, and it was so different from the tone of our show that I enjoyed it a lot, and I thought Bumper did a great job doing Spider-Man, so that would probably be my favorite. I mean, as far as the movies, it's just singing and radioing and stuff, so it's kind of hard for me to see. But Bumper did a great job. Y'all know that show? Yeah. Good.
I think so, yeah.
Did you do the same voice as Goldbug?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Did you do the same? Did Goldbug have the same voice as well?
Who had, just tell me, I'm sorry, I can't. What?
Did Goldbug have the same voice as Bumblebee?
You want me to do the voice of Bumblebee? Okay. Who also has the same voice as Bumblebee?
Goldbug.
No. I don't think so. Do you? What are you drinking over there? Is that gin? Better not be, young man. We have rules here in the UK. In the United States, you can drink all you want. Anyone else?
Which of the other Transformers characters would you most like to have taken a shot at besides Bumblebee?
Well, I think I'd probably be a pretty good Megatron. Just because I'd like to be a bad guy for a change. And be really harsh and cruel and bitter. Or I guess I could be Optimus. A little younger maybe, but still Optimus. You know, Peter Cullen doesn't have actually does have a quarter on the market.
He's the Hasbro has Peter under contract. He is their boy. He's under contract to them. He goes where they tell him to go, and he does what they tell him to do. And they remunerate him very well for it. And I guess he's working on the Transformers 4 now, which I think they're shooting at this moment. So,
Is there any other character outside of Transformers that you'd love to voice?
I'd like to do Spiderman again, but not 2099. 2099 they made me sort of rough it up a little bit, make him tougher and harder, and because it was a different type of character. I'd like to do the younger Spidey with more humor again. That was always fun, especially the wisecracks that he throws out during the battles and stuff. That was always a lot of fun, you know. So I wouldn't mind taking another crack at Spidey. And the weird thing about this business is you never know what may happen, you know. Anybody? Anyone? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys are calling the shots. Go ahead.
Just on the relationship you and Corey had, in the book you mentioned a particular guy that every single time you did an impression of George Jetson to make him just feel at his lines.
Yeah.
Can you please give us a shot of that if you're
All right. Isn't that weird? In the book, once again, the book. I'm telling you, the book is really worthwhile read. It's a lot of fun. In the book, I talk about my relationship with Corey Burton, and Corey, for some reason, had the idea that I should be playing George Jetson if they ever made the Jetson movie. And so all I had to do to crack him up was to go, "Jane, stop this crazy thing!" And Corey would go flat on the floor because he thought that was the greatest thing in the world. God only knows why he thinks I should be playing George Jetson. I don't know. But that was his thing. I love Corey. He's a sweetheart. We got to get Corey over here. You guys would love it. Love it. Yes. Yes. Battle number 1. Oh, we're down to 1 stroke. Oh.
How did you feel when you got told that G1 Transformers was
That's another strange thing. I never got told. The way I found out was I was at the Screen Actors Academy theater at a screening of a movie. And so I got a tap on the shoulder just before the movie started. And I turned and it was Chris Lana. And I said, "Hey, Chris," what are you doing? What's up? How are you? He said, "Fine." He said, "So did you know that Transformers is over?" I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, it's been canceled." I had asked, "What'd you find out?" He said, "I read in the trades today." That's how it works in Hollywood. We had no rap party. There was no ending to the thing. It was just over. And that made me kind of sad. There should have been a big ass party. There should have been champagne and caviar and cake and all that kind of stuff, and we never had that. Aww. But that's how things work in Hollywood. I've heard people in television series drive onto their lot, and their parking space is gone because their show's been canceled, and they didn't know it. So people ask me if show business is cruel. It's not cruel. It's indifferent. Show business doesn't care about you. And once you understand that, you'll be able to get along in it a lot better. Just the way it is. Yes, battle number 2.
As Bumblebee, you had a lot of warmth and sincerity and kindness to your role, a lot of determination. In Shattered Glass, where the Decepticons are the good guys and the Autobots are the bad guys, even if you know some Shattered Glass Bumblebee, what do you bring to the role? What would you sound like with it?
Well, I think he'd just be angry at everybody. I mean, It wouldn't change the pitch so much, but boy, I just like that. Give you a big sock right in the kisser. You bum ya. And he'd say stuff like, you bum ya. But then by the end of the episode, he'd be all right again. Remember when Optimus turned me? And there's a great scene where he's going to crush Bumblebee. Bumblebee goes, Optimus, no! It's me, your Bumblebee, I'm your pal! Optimus, no! Commercial.
Yeah.
Yes, where are we?
Just down in the front.
Yes.
Okay, in the movies, Michael Bay movies,
What movies were those for you?
Blade Runner, Space Invaders.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with those. Yes, go ahead.
Well, Bumblebee you only heard him speak for one line.
Yes.
But in the DVD there was a short bit where you could hear him speak for longer.
Oh.
Okay, how do you feel about Bumblebee having a Liverpool accent? And can you do a Liverpool accent?
He had a Liverpoolian accent? How did that happen? I mean, in the movie he had a Liverpoolian accent?
Well, when he's speaking over, it's a comic on the DVD.
You've got to be kidding me.
And he's narrating it.
No, you're pulling more leg, aren't
And
you?
he basically has.
Don't tell me that, because I don't believe you. No. Don't do that, all right? That's ridiculous. Bumblebee would never have a Liverpoolian accent. It doesn't fit me. You're an actually, all right? No, that's crazy. Yeah, I have another idea. Here's the thing about the movie and my voice for Bumblebee. Even Bumblebee in the movie is so big that it might be weird to hear that small voice coming out of it. You know what I mean? And that may be part of the reason that they decided to go the way they did. I mean, these are massive machines. Even him, I mean, it's a Volkswagen that turns into, it's like 8 feet tall, I guess. It might be weird to have that sort of high-pitched voice come out of that big machine.
And he's not the smallest anymore.
Who's the smallest now?
Jazz.
Jazz is?
Yeah.
How did they make Jazz the smallest?
Does Jazz still talk like this?
Yeah.
I love Scatman Brothers. Scatman, here's a Scatmanosaurus. Oh, Scatman, he was great.
Scatman used to bring his guitar or his ukulele to the sessions, and when we had breaks, he would play for us, and it was just the most wonderful thing in the world. Scatman was first and foremost a musician, and he would scat sing for us, and play his guitar, and it was like being in heaven. It was just great.
I prefer to Scatman to the movie Jazz.
Who does the voice of Jazz in the movie, you know?
I have no idea.
Yeah, see?
Speaking, just while you're mentioning Scatman there,
Yes.
throughout your career you've worked with some overall incredibly talented performers.
Yes,
Dick
I
Van Dyke, Scatman Brothers.
Yes.
Is there any point where you've just been floored, absolutely in awe of the skill and versatility of a fellow actor?
Yes, only once. I had the opportunity to work with the incredibly talented Dick Van Dyke, who most of you know from as Bert from Mary Poppins. He also had his own American television show, The Dick Van Dyke Show. I used to watch it as a kid. And I was fortunate enough to work with Dick on the last series he did called Diagnosis Murder. Did that come over here?
Did, yes.
Well, I'm on a few episodes of that show, so watch it assiduously and you will see me. That was a real thrill for me. I absolutely adored the man. I learned so much watching him doing his comedy. That was probably the best time I ever had. I spent 2 weeks on the set with him, and it was like being in heaven. It was just great.
Excellent. We do have, yeah.
Yeah, when do you remember doing the voice of Hotspot and Outback?
Of who?
Hotspot and Outback, which you did also.
Oh, Outback?
Yeah.
This is weird about Outback. Outback was Australian, right? And this is in the book. Those of you who read the book know the story, right? As we went along, when characters came up, there was not an elaborate casting system that went on. Wally would go, during that time, the Screen Actors Guild allowed you to do 3 voices for the same price. If you did more than 3 voices, they had to pay you more. So they were always cognizant if you had 3 voices. So Wally would stop in the recording and go, all right, we've got a character here, it's Outback. First of all, how many of you have 3 voices? Frank would raise his hand because Frank always had 3 voices. Peter frequently, because he was doing Ironhide and he was doing several other characters. And he said, Dan, what are you doing? I said, well, I got Spiderman. Sorry, wrong show. I cut Bumblebee and I'm doing this guard on scene 4. He said, can you do an Australian accent? I said, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess I can. And he said, good, you're Outback. I mean, that's how the roles were assigned. In fact, Red Berger also claims Outback because I believe there was a session where I wasn't there and they asked Red to do it. So it was that loosey-goosey after a while. That was with the characters that weren't like major characters. For the larger characters, they obviously had casting calls. And, you know, like Dick Gautier got the role of Hot Rod, right? Hot Rod, yeah. And so for roles like that, but usually on the fly, they would just assign roles. I mean, that's how I got Stamper and Stibbs and who's the fire guy? Hotspot, yeah. That's how I got those roles. It was just like, you do Hotspot. Hotspot, how's this? Is this good for Hotspot? Yeah, that's fine. Audition over.
Excellent. Well, we're getting close to time here. What I would like to do, please, we've got one more question over here. If we could take that. And I was wondering, would you mind wrapping us up with another reading?
Would you like to hear a reading from the book? You sure? Yeah. Okay, I'll read a short section. So we'll take one more question.
Let's take one last question.
I'm not sure if this question has been asked before, but who is your favorite character besides Bumblebee?
What is my favorite character? Like Bumblebee?
Yeah, who's your...
You mean besides Bumblebee? Spike. I love Spike. Spike's my best friend. Spike. Because I love Corey too. I identify sometimes the character with the actor, so they kind of get pushed up together. But as far as like Autobots, well, Optimus. I mean, I love Peter. I saw Peter not too long ago. We had a drink together, he and I. He's doing great. And as I said, he's under contract to Hasbro, so he's busy all the time. He was at BotCon last year when I was there. We had a great reunion. It was a lot of fun. So I love Peter. And I love the job he did, the job he does as Optimus. I can't see anyone else doing that role. He owns it. Like your glasses.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for all of your questions. Dan, if you wouldn't mind, please.
All right, let me do, before I do the book, I want to mention this. We brought over 2 of these mugs. This has our logo on the front. It's me and the different characters that I do. It also says Auto Assembly 2013, Birmingham, England. There are 2 of these. We're doing a lottery, and a portion of the proceeds is going to go to the Hasbro Children's Hospital. So if you feel like it, stop by. The lottery tickets are £1. Buy a ticket or 2. We're going to do the drawing. Is it okay if we do the drawing on stage here?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is that around 4? Is that okay?
4 o'clock sounds good to me.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're going to do the drawing then here according to David on stage. So if you have time to stop over at our table, pick up a raffle ticket or 2 because you'll be doing a good cause, and you'll also have a chance to win some very cool mugs. There are 2 mugs, 2 chances to win. So I just wanted to get back in. Let me read about Wally. Wally gets his own chapter. Wally needs his own chapter. Wally was probably the most prepared director I ever worked with. He knew the script backwards, forwards, and sideways. He knew precisely what was happening, how it was happening, and why it was happening at any given point in the show. If Optimus Prime got hit with a missile, Wally knew the speed at which the missile flew and the approximate tonnage of the explosives it carried. He knew how much damage it had done to Prime, and he knew how Prime would react. On a show like Transformers, with so much physical action, Wally's attention to detail was a huge benefit. Unfortunately, it was also, in my opinion, a huge detriment. Because you see, as Wally went through the script, logging the action, exploring the physical aspects of the show, he was also hearing the dialogue in his head delivered in a certain very specific way. And unless and until you gave him that line just the way he heard it in his head the night before, you were not moving on. 5, 10, 15, 20 takes of a line was not uncommon. And I'm not talking about complicated lines either. The line, "Go get him," might go 3 or 5 takes. Now, although this kind of attention to detail was commendable, it also made for some grueling recording sessions. Figure it out for yourself. Let's say that after the table read and pickups from the previous week's episode, we ended up with 6 hours in which to record the show. Now, the scripts were generally 30 to 35 pages long, and a lot of that was action, no words, just a description of what was going on at any particular time. So, let's be generous and say that a quarter of the script was action sequences. So in a 40-page script, that leaves 30 pages of dialogue. That gives us 30 pages of dialogue divided by 6 hours into which to record it. Do the math. It becomes obvious that a lot of time was spent on each individual line. Now, this repetition was not a particular problem for those of us working in a higher register. Tedious, yes, but not destructive. But people like Peter and Frank who were reaching way down deep for those voices. It was pure torture. Peter Cullen would literally crawl out of the recording booth after a particularly brutal session. I swear to God, I once saw spots of blood on the glass. It's a testament to Peter and Frank's vocal technique that they had any voice left at all. Now, most actors detest line readings. They don't want to be told by a director how to read a line. They want to be free to interpret the material the way they see fit. After all, that's what you're hired for, the ability to bring the written word to life. And this is usually the case with me as well, but not on Transformers. No. I found the best way to deal with Wally's directorial style was to try a few takes. And if he wasn't getting what he wanted, I'd ask him to read the line as he thought it should be read. And then I would repeat it back to him, duplicating as best I could the way he read it. I got so I could Wally up a line pretty darn well. Usually, enough for him to get through 2 or 3 takes and us move on. Usually I had a few bad days, a few 10 or 12 takes, but not too bad. Nothing like what our guest actors started with. Walking into a Transformers recording session cold was like walking into the teeth of a buzzsaw. Those of us who were regulars on the show knew our characters. We were familiar with our rhythms, pretty much understood what Wally wanted to go for. Our guest cast did not. I have seen actors, competent, experienced professionals, reduced to mounds of quivering jello by the time Wally was finished with them. 15 or 20 takes of a line was not uncommon. And I'm not sure what the record was or who had the distinction of holding it, but I can guarantee you that that performer is at this moment selling aluminum siding in a city as far away from Los Angeles as he could get. A few of us, heartless bastards that we were, would actually make bets on how many takes Wally would demand of a certain actor of a certain line. Looking ahead in the script, someone would whisper, "Oh man, look at that. That's a 10-take line." Nah, someone else would whisper, $5 says it goes 15. You're on. Generally, whoever picked the outside figure won the bet. Now, given what I've told you, I hope I haven't caused you to believe that I dislike Wally in any way or hold a grudge. I don't. I consider him a friend. He and I have spoken many times over the years, and our relationship was and is always cordial. Now, Wally simply had a job to do, and he did it as he saw fit. And regardless of how one might view his methods, the proof, as they say, is in the pudding. Yes, he was a taskmaster. Yes, he sometimes made unreasonable demands. But through it all, in one way or another, Wally managed to cook up some mighty tasty pudding.
Thank you very much for that.
We're done?
I think we are. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Dan Gilvezan!
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks for being here. Love you all. Especially you.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the like button and leave us a comment below. Also, spare a moment to share this video on Twitter, Facebook, and all your social media pages. To get updates on all of our latest videos delivered straight to your inbox, subscribe now using the link on the screen.